The Oregon Ducks made a statement. They decimated a Power 4 school 69-3, but they're not the only team within the Big Ten that did just that.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is right. It is a Locked On crossover with Locked On Nittany Lions and Locked On Hoosiers. I'm your co-host, Zach Seyko, joined by Jacob Goins. We talk Penn State and Indiana on a daily basis. So thank you so much for making this crossover episode your first listen or watch of the day. And thank you for being an everydayer for Penn State and Indiana coverage. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers, when you bet $5, you can get $300 in bonus bets to use all across FanDuel if you win that first $5 bet. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section, as we will give a Week 3 preview. Not as entertaining, but definitely some intriguing matchups on the Week 3 slate. We're obviously going to talk about Penn State and Indiana in depth, but the schools that made a statement, well, there's a lot to get through in Week 2. This is where we're going to focus most of our attention here, as Oregon destroys Oklahoma State, but they weren't alone. Illinois destroyed Duke. And I think that win, honestly, might be a little more impressive. Well, the scoreboard isn't to the likes of almost a 70-point nuke, but geez, I think Illinois to go on the road like that against a Duke team that had aspirations to win the ACC. So we're going to break it all down here. Jacob, let's, I think, start with Oregon, because some people were kind of selling out, and including myself to an extent. I had Oregon in the Big Ten championship against Penn State. That was my preseason prediction. But I definitely thought there was a gap between the Nittany Lions, the Ohio State Buckeyes. I thought the standings would kind of give Oregon a back door, so to speak, into this year's Big Ten championship. Well, they kicked it right in. I mean, the Ducks to put up almost 70 points on a Power 4 school. Now, granted, Oklahoma State is not the same Oklahoma State that we've come to know, but you got to respect this win. And Oregon is in that tier of they can contend for a Big Ten title and a national title.
Yeah, they are. And look, Oregon was one of those teams that when everybody talked about the Big Ten to start the season, it was, okay, there's Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon's right there. You can loop them into that top 3 if you wanted to, or they could be just that next team out with the Buckeyes and with the Nittany Lions. And look, I think Oregon has looked really, really good. Montana State was shaky to start, then they got it going. And Oklahoma State, my goodness, I mean, they embarrassed a Power 4 team and a legendary head coach in Mike Gundy after, after he had some things to say about that Oregon team because they spent too much money in college football, and then Dan Lanning and the Ducks took that.
Oh, they let him know about it.
Oh, they did. On the scoreboard, in press conferences, on the field, you name it, they did. And I'm not saying we should just buy all stock in Oregon and take it to the bank and they're winning the national title because they did this to Oklahoma State. But these are the types of things I wanted to see personally for me to buy more stock in the Oregon Ducks, because Dante Moore was a question. He looks legit through 2 weeks. Here's the problem, though, Zach. They're going to play at Northwestern. Then they're going to host Oregon State before they come to you guys and play Penn State. So how much will we truly know about this Oregon team? I don't know. But what I do know is
a lot, honestly.
You think so?
Yeah, because you go and have 2 more really competitive games, and honestly, again, it's the rest versus rust debate, but if Northwestern's gonna at least give you a fight, right? I don't think they're gonna upset Oregon, but you're gonna have to earn your win. That's all I'm gonna say, because Northwestern is always going to be that physical, scrappy team that says, okay, if you beat us by 10, you beat us by 50. We're gonna make sure that you earn every point on the scoreboard there. So that's that with just being a Big Ten conference opponent. And remember, that is a noon kickoff. So I think Oregon, coming off of the high, so to speak, against Oklahoma State, might have at least a little bit of a letdown spot. I still think they win, and I think they dominate Northwestern. But at the same time, I do think there is an opportunity for Northwestern to make its own statement of, we are still in the Big Ten. You should give up some respect. And then on the heels of that, you have Oregon State, right? So it doesn't get any easier. You're going to get bruised. You're going to get battered if you're Oregon. Penn State gets that bye week. So I think we're going to learn about Oregon a lot, is how can they withstand this 3-week stretch and then play one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, that's going to be the big thing, though, is sure, you'll get tested against Northwestern and Oregon State. Of course, that one being a rivalry game as well, so there's always a little bit of extra juice there. Exactly. But if you're Oregon, how do you take that next step when you do travel and play Penn State and Happy Valley? Because that will be by far the most talented team, the best coach team, everything all together that they have seen all season long. But through 2 weeks, they look really, really good. And then you mentioned Illinois and Duke as well. And why Illinois beat Duke. Duke beat Duke also. 5 turnovers in this game compared to 0 by the Illini. And Brett Bielema's squad took advantage. 21 points or something like that off of turnovers in this game? Mm-hmm. That's what good teams do, Zach. That's what good teams do. They force turnovers and they score on those turnovers. And look, Illinois played really well. They come out with a nice win, and they have a cupcake game in week 3, as do our squads, and then they come to Bloomington a week from this week. So that's going to be a top 10 team. They are a top 10 team in college football, and they look really good, and Indiana fans are starting to talk a little bit.
So do you think it's a little bit of a fluky win? Because, turnovers can really inflate the result, especially like you said, hey, Duke beat themselves, so to speak, at home. Maybe it was the pressure of, hey, this is a ranked team. They have college football playoff aspirations. We're kind of the underdog in this battle. And Illinois walks in there, and not only do they win, but they win by a boatload of points. But you look at everything else, okay, Illinois doesn't really jump off the stat sheet in any other category except those turnovers, right? I look at and time of possession, of course, because that's Brett Bielema's signature. But outside, turnovers and time of possession are key, right? If you win those battles 99 times out of 100, you're probably winning the football game, if I'm being honest, if you take care of those 2 metrics. But I look at first downs. Illinois didn't have too many there, more so than Duke. Third down conversions, for example, they weren't as efficient. The total yardage, if you have all that possession time, if you force that many turnovers and you don't have more yardage than Duke does when it's 45-19 like that. So I guess you can pop some holes in this bubble about the Illinois team. Hey, turnovers are turnovers to me. I'm not saying it's a fluke, but I wonder if other people, you yourself or anybody else in the comments section, would say that, oh, you know what? In a way, Illinois gets lucky, and if they don't get those turnovers handed to them, they probably don't win.
Yeah, and, when you start talking turnovers, too, there are 2 types of turnovers. There are giveaways and there are takeaways. Yes. And I think there were a little bit of both in this game from the Duke Blue Devils and then from the Illinois defense. Like, I think Luke Altmaier looked good, threw for nearly 300 yards, had 3 touchdowns in this game. He did what they were supposed to do. And as you mentioned, the time of possession was fine, but I just think Illinois is a good football team. Do I think that they are great? Do I think that they're this 10-11 win team that a bunch of people said they were in the preseason? No, I still don't, Zach. I still am not on that train just yet. Let's see them play Indiana next week. And that's just as much about Illinois as it is Indiana, because I'm not sold on the Hoosiers yet, even though I cover them on a daily basis. I'm not sold on us yet either. A big-time matchup going down next week at Bloomington, but I give Illinois big-time credit for winning this game against Duke.
Hey, those weren't the only consequential matchups. Bryce Underwood had his first test as a collegiate quarterback going on the road to Norman, and the Oklahoma Sooners defended home territory. Michigan State ends up holding on to a victory against Boston College, which needed double overtime and massive faceplant. All things are not well in Southern California, not with USC. UCLA, the Nico Iamaleava experience is going exactly, honestly, how we thought it would go as they lose to UNLV. So we're going to talk about Penn State and Indiana in this upcoming segment, but continue to focus on the Big Ten overall. As like I said, some consequential matchups that have a little more than meets the eye. That's coming up next here on this Locked On crossover to round up the Big Ten.
Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the scoreboard. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week moment that moved the game forward is Curt Cignetti kind of calling out his team, saying, hey, we got to be better. We got to be cleaner. We can't be cakewalking through these games. We can't have celebrations and social hour on the side. sideline. That's what Cignetti does, and I think he means it. And I think that will help this Indiana team move forward this week against Indiana State. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. We continue with a Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Nittany Lions as we continue breaking down week 2 of Big Ten play. Zach Seyko of Locked On Nittany Lions over there, Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers here. And you mentioned a couple of games in between segments, and we got to go to what was considered the biggest game of the weekend last weekend for college football as Michigan goes on the road to the SEC in Norman to take on John Mateer in Oklahoma. And Bryce Underwood just didn't have a whole lot going. And I'm going to say this, Zach, before I'll toss it to you. That offense is not doing him any favors. The fact that they're not allowing his athleticism to take over in a game like that, where it was close and ugly pretty much the entire way, that's not what Michigan fans were wanting. And I don't know if that was worth of $8 million to get that done on the road in Norman because they come up a little bit short.
I think part of it's I will say this. I think Oklahoma outcoached Sharon Moore and company. So I don't think it was so much that, Michigan didn't allow Bryce Underwood to really get into his groove. I think that was Brent Venables kind of settling in more and just having, this is a freshman. This is a true freshman quarterback going on the road to, SEC country. But Norman, Oklahoma is just across the board one of the best environments in college football. So I should have been a little more aware of that in this situation because I did think Michigan would win decisively. And honestly, if this game was played later in the season at a neutral site, let's say they play again in a bowl game, that very well could go in the favor of Michigan because I think Bryce Underwood's only going to get better. There is a little bit of a power struggle. He's a true freshman that is back at the bottom of the totem pole in a way, but he is also the starting quarterback. So when I see him on the sideline trying to get the best out of his teammates and expect a little more, and there's pushback because he is an 18-year-old kid. Yeah. I mean, are you going to take that from the freshman quarterback? Well, you kind of have to because he's the leader. So there's this give and take that Michigan just has to get through. If you look at the box score, again, I watched a majority of that game, but it was just the receiving game was not helping him out. I don't think coaching was helping him out, but it was also because Oklahoma was just doing a darn good job of making a freshman quarterback, giving a little more difficulty to a freshman quarterback's responsibilities.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, look, 9 of 24 is disappointing for Bryce Underwood in terms of throwing the football. You did have Justice Haynes who does what he does and ran for 125 yards. But Oklahoma, you talk about ground and pound and play defense. That's what Oklahoma does anyway. And I haven't been overly impressed with John Mateer at Oklahoma, but they got the win and they got it done.
I was now. Mateer had the game of his life. That if you can say anybody won them that game, it was John Mateer.
See, I think, I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent. I think it was good, not great. I think he could be better. That's what I'm saying. I think he could be even better, which is why Oklahoma went to get him. And then a guy like Jaden Ott, the Cal transfer, hasn't done a whole lot in the first 2 games there. Not sure if there's more to that or what. But I think it's a good win for Oklahoma, and now they got to get ready for SEC play. But a couple of other games around the Big Ten that we need to shout out here very quickly. Michigan State. Don't know how, don't know why, but took 2 overtimes and they got it done. I'll give a little round of applause for Michigan State for getting it done against Boston College. What about you, Zach?
Same thing here because I expected Bill O'Brien to come away with that win. It was the shootout that I more or less expected it to be just because these are very offensive-minded teams, but good on Aiden Childs. That was kind of a sleeper pick for me to win the Heisman just because of the volume. And, Michigan State's going to be a revolving door on defense, even though I really do like their defensive coordinator. That was a candidate when Penn State had the job opening before Jim Knowles. But he's a good defensive coordinator. I just don't know that they have the horses to kind of keep up with teams on a routine basis. So that falls on Jonathan Smith. He gets them a win in double overtime. Great job.
Are vibes worse right now at Iowa or UCLA. Iowa comes up short in a rivalry game against Iowa State. All they got to do is score the ball and they're going to win games, but that's been the story at Iowa forever, I think. And then the Nico Iamaleava experiment may already be over. Our buddy Zach Anderson-Yaxheimer on Locked On UCLA is already shipping them out the door.
Dude's going through it.
He is counting down for basketball season, man. They are going through it. So are vibes worse at UCLA or Iowa right now?
I got to imagine UCLA from the 10,000-foot view, because if you're Iowa, you lost to a ranked team that in Iowa State that it's not fun to lose a rivalry game. This is a pseudo championship, so to speak. But you still have your season ahead of you. UCLA, I don't know what games can they win in the Big Ten Conference.
You gave Dan Mullen his third win in a row at UNLV. What are we doing?
Yeah,
what are we doing?
I think UNLV is an overlooked team. That is a game that UCLA should win, but I totally expected UNLV to make it close, if not pull off the upset there, because Deshaun Foster needs time. Nico Iamaleava left a team that really built him up because of the supporting cast. Great coaching, great defense, weapons to throw to, a ground game that could bail you out. None of that's at UCLA, man. If he struggled with that system at Tennessee, what was he going to do at UCLA? So yeah, they absolutely have buyer's remorse, as they should. But Iowa, the season's far from over. It is not ideal to lose the Cy-Hawk rivalry, but at least you can come back from it. UCLA, I don't know if they can come back at all this season after 2 weeks. I'm here to declare that it's over.
God, it's already over in California. Not for USC, who actually looks pretty darn good.
Yeah.
But it's UCLA, and it may already be over. Quick hitters, really quick, Zach, on your Nittany Lions, on my Hoosiers as well. Played two teams that were just top tier competition. Doesn't get any better than what FIU and Kennesaw State gave the Nittany Lions and the Hoosiers. So before we get to our Week 3 preview, tell me what you saw from Penn State in the Nittany Lions.
Well, I saw a lot of disgruntled Penn State fans. The Boo Birds were out in full force because the offense was atrocious in the first half. Okay, that is fair to say. But at the same time, I'm just not buying into the whole, because they look not so great against FIU, that they're going to struggle with Oregon, that they're going to struggle with Ohio State. Every game is independent of yourself. And I would rather them have these simple problems against FIU, because then you know about them, you can correct them and make sure that they're taken care of before Oregon. So I just don't want to be as nearsighted with everything. It is strange when your veteran offense that returns all that consistency and continuity that I hyped up in the offseason, for them to make the mistakes and not the defense that has a new coordinator, some new key players that have to step up. It would be understandable if the defense was a little leaky and the offense making some simple miscommunication errors. So they have another daunting matchup against FCS Villanova, but because of the criticism that was all across social media, I expect Penn State to be fairly motivated against in the Battle of Pennsylvania with Villanova coming to town.
Yeah, that's kind of where we sit with Indiana. That was more of our feeling after week 1, because there were so many stutters and so many just kind of question marks after the game against Old Dominion, where the scoreboard doesn't tell the final story. And I think you feel that way about Penn State over FIU. But after beating Kennesaw State the way Indiana did, I feel much better. I'm not back yet, but I do feel better with Fernando Mendoza, who looked like the transfer quarterback that you wanted when you went to get him from California. The offensive line looked pretty good. Indiana's three-headed snake at running back right now is truly incredible to watch. All three of them are top 15 in the Big Ten in rushing yards as it sits right now heading into week 3. All three of them. I mean, that's impressive. Only 2 weeks in, yes, but you're getting them good rotation. Defense is getting after the quarterback, getting after the football. Drops are an issue, and big plays on defense are an issue for me right now. If you get those cleaned up for the most part against our juggernaut on Friday night, Indiana State, then we're feeling all right.
Battle of Indiana.
It's a state game, man. It's an in game where we're taking care of our boys over there. Get some things cleaned up in this game. You got Illinois coming in next week. I know there's no spread or anything yet. They're a top 10 team. Indiana should be a top 20 team by the time that game rolls around. We'll be feeling much better about it after the Hoosiers took down Kennesaw State. And so it's funny that you and I are kind of in the same boat on just opposite weeks and going into another weekend where it's like, well, let's see if we get it figured out, but there's big games looming down the stretch.
Now, it's not the best Big Ten slate coming up, but there are definitely some games worth mentioning here as USC gets its first Big Ten test against a Purdue team that is not afraid to just go in and fight. And Wisconsin, can they make a statement against an Alabama team that everybody thinks is reeling? Oregon gets that gritty game against Northwestern. So we have plenty to talk about in a Week 3 preview of the Big Ten slate coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover.
Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Drip Drop. I noticed that when I'm on top of my hydration, everything just works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, and even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always the easiest thing to do. That's why I've been loving Drip Drop. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. I use it all the time, and I've used a ton of different electrolyte powders, but nothing tastes as good or works as fast as using Drip Drop. And right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time that you order. These players delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. We've talked about Fernando Mendoza. A ton of yards through the air. 4 touchdowns thrown last weekend against Kennesaw State, and we need him to do it again this weekend against Indiana State. And hey, maybe we're talking about Alberto Mendoza as our guy who delivered if he's able to get in and maybe play the whole second half if the Hoosiers have this thing wrapped up tonight. And just like the Mendozas delivered for Indiana last week, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday that you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th.
And as we pick back up in this Locked On crossover, Week 3, okay, Week 2 was that was must-watch TV across the board except for Penn State and Indiana. This non-conference schedule is just something we all got to get through here. But Week 2 in comparison to Week 3, there are still some matchups here that are worth watching, that are definitely respectable. Can Wisconsin kind of salvage some public perception here? They are, give or take, 21-point underdogs to Alabama on the road as a part of this home-and-home series. I think this is an excellent get-back game for Alabama. Part of this is, and I'm not scared to go on the record for this, because I was very confident that Alabama would not be a team that anybody wants to play later on in the season, particularly in the college football playoff. I thought this was a team that could get to the national title. Egg on my face to start, but this is a prime opportunity where it's a visiting Big Ten team where Alabama can make a statement, but I think the same thing goes for Wisconsin as well when Luke Fickell's on this theoretical hot seat.
It's a good point, and it is. And here's the problem. Tommy Castellanos, the quarterback for Florida State, said it way back in the summer, even before Florida State played Alabama, and said they don't have Nick Saban to save them, Zach. And I think he was right. He proved he was right, and I still think that he's right. Do I think Wisconsin wins this game? No, because they're on the road in Tuscaloosa, which is a tough environment, not the craziest. It's big, but it's not loud. Mm-hmm. I think Wisconsin and this team will come in with a chip on their shoulder. They'll understand that this is an Alabama team, especially on the defensive side of the football. That is not what they've been in the past. They are too undisciplined. There are players who are just not playing with teetotal efforts like we saw under Nick Saban. And I don't know if I have confidence in Kalen DeBoer to get it turned around this quickly. I think Alabama wins. 21.5 is a lot. And if you remember, Alabama beat Wisconsin last year after the Badgers starting quarterback got knocked out in the first drive of the game, I think, or maybe the second drive. Yes. I think Wisconsin keeps this thing close. I think Danny O'Neill's good enough. The Badgers will be around. They're not going to win, but they're going to give Alabama everything they want and have the SEC running scared once again.
Well, discipline's the key word. You said undisciplined, but discipline is the key terminology here, and Alabama is not playing with it. And you would expect, you think you would have that with Kalen DeBoer. I'm not saying Kalen DeBoer is the second coming of Nick Saban, but is it really that drastic? Because Kalen DeBoer got, I don't know, not everything's perfect or a one-size-fits-all situation. Sure. I expected Kalen DeBoer because, hey, you did so well at Washington that this, with the support that you have at Alabama, it's just not coming together. They're not meeting expectations. So Wisconsin, let's say this, Alabama has more to lose in this game if it's close or if there's an upset watch or anything like that. Alabama has to win this game by 2 to 3 touchdowns because, like I said, they have more to lose in this game than Wisconsin does. Okay. Yeah. And let's keep it going. We're going to talk about Oregon Northwestern here, but how about the Big Ten on Big Ten? USC on the road at Purdue. The Fighting Boilermakers, I don't give them much of a fighting chance. Now, similar spread, 20, give or take 20, 21.5 points, depending on where you look on your Saturday. But USC is another one of those teams that I think Illinois got a lot of the buzz, but it is definitely fair to say that USC should get that same credence too, that they could sneak into the college football playoff with Lincoln Riley upgrading this coaching staff, getting his quarterback developed and ready to go for this upcoming season, retaining most of the core of their star players, and just improving the defense consecutively year after year after year. So there's a lot to like about this USC team. I'm not giving Purdue much of a chance other than, hey, go be scrappy and get some moral victories this Saturday.
I mean, what an opportunity, though, for Purdue. I mean, I hate to talk good about Purdue, especially since we hired a guy to do it full-time at Locked On, because I'm not going to do it. But I do think it is a cool opportunity for Barry Odom and Purdue to get a huge, huge win. Do I think they do it? No, because I think USC is more talented at every single position across the board, both sides of the football, and even a better trainer on the sidelines as well. But Purdue could hang in this game early. Problem is, against Southern Illinois, it was 14 all after the first quarter when Purdue played them last week. That concerns me. I don't think the atmosphere will be an issue either for USC, and I think talent will reign supreme in this game. I think USC ends up running away with this game. What'd you say the spread is as of right now, Zach?
21.5.
God, that's so many points. That's so many points.
I think it's justified.
I think it talent on the field is justified, but my goodness, it's hard for me to bet on Lincoln Riley to do what he's supposed to do in a game like this. Is that crazy?
Could it be a sleepy game? It's just, it's Purdue. They're the bottom feeders of the Big Ten. Who cares about a new coach? And you're going on the road to West Lafayette, as you mentioned. That's just not a high energy stadium, at least right now. Maybe Barry Odom fixes things where he can kind of, if you build it, they will come. But USC is in a much different place than where Purdue is. I think USC is back to where they can put themselves in the conversation. Purdue, it's going to be a long rebuild.
Yeah, I'm with you. I will, for no other reason than not trusting Lincoln Riley, I will say Purdue covers, but USC will win by double digits here.
Maybe it's a backdoor cover. Maybe Purdue leaves its starters in late, but I definitely think this is a 3-4 touchdown deficit, and USC will be in control for most of the game, especially after they settle in. I think there will be some jet lag, but second half will be all theirs. All right. Northwestern and Oregon, we briefly discussed it kind of to open the show. Oregon, give or take 27.5, 28.5 point favorites on the road at Northwestern. Okay, this is where jet lag really comes into play. You also kind of have that letdown spot because you just almost put up 70 against Oklahoma State. Just because of those circumstances, I'm inclined to believe that Northwestern has at least an advantage in the spread. They're going to make it a rock fight. They have some veteran players that are at least respectable. Again, Preston Stone has played a lot of college football, even though he got pushed out at SMU.
Yeah.
David Braun is a good head coach. If he had more resources, a better situation, I think he'd be a little more respected in the Power 4 ranks here. With that being said, Oregon is still Oregon, but I do think if you want kind of any sneaky bets, maybe first half spread Northwestern. I believe in jet lag. This is a 9 a.m. game for Oregon coming off of a beatdown of Oklahoma State. There's just going to be a lot. There's just going to be a lot left in between from the week to week buildup here, where Northwestern has nothing to lose and Oregon has a lot to lose to kind of maintain the status now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about this being the big noon kickoff on Fox. I mean, that's a huge part of this. And I always like to say that an early kickoff benefits the road team more times than not, but not here. I think that goes out the window literally here. I'm with you that will benefit Northwestern. But my goodness, we were just talking about a talent differential between USC and Purdue, triple that when it comes to Oregon and Northwestern. I'll take Northwestern if you can get it at 28 or 28.5. If you can get full 4 touchdowns there, yes, I will give it to them because Oregon may just call off the dogs, but there will be no doubt, no sweat. Our buddy Spencer will be fine. Oregon's going to handle Northwestern in this game and get back home before the sun goes down.
I could see something 35-17, something like that.
See, I think it ends up being like 49 to, gosh, I don't know, 49-25 or something like that.
Do we think Northwestern gets into the 20s? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's going to be about them holding them.
That's a good point.
I just see Oregon's offense they sleepwalk into this game, but then they settle in after, let's wake up, let's sleepy dust out of our eyes. Let's handle this game against a team that we're so much better than. But that's where we got to wrap things up. We do this once a week. We're probably going to continue to do this even more past this, but as we settle in, we do a Big Ten review, talk about our team's Big Ten preview with the upcoming slate. So this is our Big Ten roundup here, just to give a bigger perspective outside of Penn State and Indiana. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Jacob Goins, the host of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you to the everydayers. If you are not one, become one. Subscribe to our respective YouTube channels and wherever you get your podcasts for daily updates around our teams, but also the Big Ten as well. Jacob, it's great to meet with you here every single week to talk about the Big Ten, because I think it adds a little more fun here with our respective teams. So thank you for the time as always.
No doubt, man. Always enjoy the time.